Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's session on future-proofing your school's network with Wi-Fi 6 technology. If you have any questions at any point during the presentation, please enter them into the questions panel. And I'd like to introduce today's speaker, Jonathan Kidwell, who is Senior Director of North America Education Sales here at Cambium Networks. Jonathan, you can take it from here.
All right. Thank you very much, Olivia. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, hello, everyone, and thank you, as Olivia said, for good morning and good afternoon, evening, depending on what time zone you're in. Appreciate everybody attending today to talk about Wi-Fi 6 in schools and deployments and being able to future-proof and some of the thought considerations that that we're having. Definitely with the start of school being right in front of us all, a new semester and a new year, COVID-19 and the pandemic situation, we're definitely in unprecedented times. And you know, whether it be remote learning or hybrid learning or NTI, non-traditional instruction, those are things that are definitely seem to be a revolving door of what we're doing and how we're doing it to bring the learning environment to the students. And so we'll spend quite a bit of time today going through some concerns and thoughts around that. So today's agenda: what is Wi-Fi 6 at a pretty high level? You know, why is it critical, and how does it play into the success in education? Planning and deployment, options, thoughts, things to consider, and then definitely funding options for different ways to be able to go after different levels of funds and be able to support and be fiscally responsible. And then kind of the Cambium difference, some of the things that we offer when it comes to Wi-Fi 6. And then I'll leave some time at the end for some Q&A. So to get moving into I guess I'll go back here one. I want to take a quick poll, just a few seconds here, because of the COVID world that we all live in now, in unprecedented times. I'd like to take a poll of everyone, if you just take a second, as far as what are you doing in your current school situation going back to school? Are you going non-traditional, 100% remote? Are you doing a hybrid, or are your students coming back to school this year? So that's pretty interesting for sure. I appreciate everybody responding. So only 17% are face-to-face learning going back, which if we would have looked at that, you know, and I would say what, a year, or not a year ago, a month ago, that number was considerably higher. And so one thing that this has taught us, that we don't know the future. We don't know what's going to happen every day and going forward, and we have to be prepared as technologists and education leaders to be able to support both the Wi-Fi instruction in the classroom, hybrid, whether that means 1 day a week or a portion of your students coming in. We've even seen to where some schools across the nation are going to start back in some form of hybrid and then move to 100% remote learning. So just very interesting when it comes to how everybody's attacking this problem. So why should I care? What is Wi-Fi 6 and why should I care? I think, you know, it's kind of it goes without saying too much, but if you look from 11B technology back in pre-2000, it was pretty much just for mail and browsing the web. And then, you know, over time, it's really more about the devices that are connecting and the speeds and extending the battery life of the client devices and the number of devices that are doing high high speed and high video, high throughput on your network. And so it's a natural transition of technology. And really, when you start looking at some of the needs of the Wi-Fi 6 and what we're moving to and where schools are looking at, is the end user is determining the rate in which schools have to refresh their networks. As the devices, as more and more Chromebooks come on, you have just this influx of devices and the IoT devices, and then when you start talking about online testing and streaming media, especially if it's remote and coming in a hybrid model, where you have to have going in and out services to keep it the same, and your teachers may be coming in. I've talked to some schools that are going to have the teachers come in to the schools and do video from the classroom, but the students not come in. And so making sure that those networks perform for that video and on-demand environment is much more taxing on the needs of a wireless network than it was in the past. So, when we look at the high capacity, there's really two things that are very important when it comes to Wi-Fi 6. And it's multi-user Ofdma, which is small packet efficiency. We'll talk about that in a second. And then multi-user Mimo, being able to talk to multiple devices at the same time and being able to really improve the efficiency of the delivery of the network. There's, tremendous faster data rates, of course, longer battery life, because the transmission time is shorter. We can extend the battery life of the devices, which of course is a huge concern, especially in schools when you're face to face, because just battery life of whether it be a Chromebook or an iPad or any type of a mobile device. So a lot of people want to know, okay, is it really that much faster? Is it really, when you start looking at the real world performance? And so there's a tremendous amount of still 11N networks that are out there. And so when you kind of look at that 11N environment, you were really, it just improved ABG tremendously, and you're able to see about 150 meg throughput on wireless. And when you start looking at it, almost every wireless device, whether it be a phone, a tablet, a Chromebook, a laptop, most PCs are all 2 antenna configurations. And so when you start looking at 2 antenna configuration, you would see the effective throughput of 11N at like 150. So when AC came out, it jumps to about 500 meg, if and only if you can use those 80 megahertz channels, which most networks are only using 40 megahertz channels. So in essence, it really becomes 250. And so it was a whole lot better. But then when you start looking at AX and Wi-Fi 6, it jumps way over the gigabit threshold. It's being able to use overlapping streams and smaller frequency allocations. All of the AX features boil down to one statement, basically, and that AX is deterministic network, where the access point is in charge of telling the clients when to transmit and what to transmit and where to connect and when to sleep and when to wake up. And so the efficiency of 11AX is just amazing compared to anything else. And later on in our presentation, we'll kind of go to some of those test results. We got some real world test results that we've been using around some schools. So a lot of people, there's an acronym, it's the alphabet soup, I like to say. But what is Ofdma and multi-user Mimo? And if you think about this in the most basic sense, think about a truck, an Amazon Prime truck. We'll say that because of everybody's buying all their stuff on Amazon Prime, it seems like these days. When you had AC and 11N, regardless of whether you bought a coffee mug or a piano, under the transmit capabilities of older technology, it all came in the same size box and it all came on the same truck. And so you had to allocate all of the resources for the potential, the size of the packet, and everything. So in the picture here on the left, imagine I couldn't fit those other 2 boxes on that same truck because I don't have the ability to package the cup in a smaller box. And so when we start looking at things that are low latency, that are low packet, we can push those into a smaller box and put more boxes on that truck. And then when you start talking about multi-user Mimo, now I can have more trucks on the highway delivering. I don't have to have one truck running around my city servicing all of my purchasers. I can actually have multiple trucks and then start understanding what trucks need to go where and being able to talk to certain clients. And so clients that talk on a higher bandwidth or higher frequency, I can make sure that I have more trucks for those and be able to service those users at a higher efficiency. And so on the same side, from the client standpoint, I can start looking at the reverse path. I can start looking at small packets in a single transmission to up to 37 clients at the same time. And that's ideal for all kinds of applications, but in particular voice calls and IoT devices that are always, and always connected social media devices like, phones or whatever. And then when you look at multi-user Mimo transmitting those larger packets to up to 4 devices, then you really start getting that for ideal for streaming media, large packet applications, and those type of things. And consider what happens like when things that are already introducing into our schools, like augmented reality and virtual reality, and even the headsets and the full-time streaming, ensuring that these applications require 4K or higher. It's easy to imagine that 30 megabits per second each for each of those streams, you really have to make sure that the AP is configured and also designed to properly support those type of rates. So definitely when you start looking at some of the other things, the spatial reuse, the target wait time, a lot of these things were in the promise of AC Wave 2, Wi-Fi 5 Wave 2, and multi-user Mimo, but were never delivered. And there's a lot of people who may even bought Wi-Fi 6 pre-ratification and haven't been able to see the effects of some of these efficiencies. But now that Cambium waited until everything was ratified, and we're happy to be able to share our test results and our real life results. But the good part about that is that is not a wish. We can demonstrate multi-user Mimo. We can demonstrate all the things to show the efficiency and the gains in a Wi-Fi 6 environment. So a lot of technical conversations around what it is and what it's not. The big thing is why do I care? Why is it critical for my educational environment and for the success of my education? So I've been working with schools for my whole life in the business, and definitely the transition to not just safe schools, but student success and online learning has really, and probably in the last 3 or 4 years, pole vaulted or catapulted to the top of everyone's mind. And the network is the most strategic asset in anyone's environment in a school district. So the success or failure of phone systems, the success or failure of video surveillance, the success or failure of door access and perimeter access, and those type of things are all dependent upon the efficiency to deliver the right application to the right user at the right time or the right device. And so the wireless environment just continually has more and more pressure put on it. Definitely with the safe schools, schools are having to beef up the security and the surveillance, and then even to the point of seeing cameras in the classrooms for both streaming and safety and educational streaming. And then student success, right? Where every student education based on student data and classroom needs and personal planning for that student, being able to understand that learning environment for an individual student, moving to tools in the cloud, of course, and then you think about what we've seen in the last 6 months since the COVID, people being out of school, moving to Zoom and Microsoft Teams and any kind of cloud-based two-way interaction. But then, online testing and high stakes performance testing, and how do you handle that, because you have to ensure that test is delivered in an equitable and high reliable environment for your students. And then I added this other one. The flexible learning is definitely top of mind to everybody, as the poll even showed. So being able to understand distance learning, video, and how to handle online test applications, and mandated by most states at high stakes test. But then also just BYOD and high-speed wireless needs for both indoor and outdoor environments. And as we've seen, a lot of schools across the nation moving to making sure that their parking lots and their playgrounds and their outdoor environments have the ability for students to come to them, but still being able to socially distance. All huge concerns when you talk about the network being the foundation and the baseline for for that environment. So one of the dilemmas that you have when you start everything that I was talking about then was about applications. Well, a user, a student, a faculty, a teacher, whatever, sees applications as an app on their phone, or sees applications as a button on their screen. A traditional network sees an application as port 80 or 443, and in a CLI manner, that is only everything on the left is either port 80 or 443. And so if you think about everything that you're trying to do for student success and safety and delivering the right application at the right time, it's no longer okay to prioritize or block individual TCP ports. You need to have better visibility for your network. And so ensuring that your wireless, even in a Wi-Fi 5 environment, it's about protecting the asset, which is the airspace is there. And so making sure that you have the ability to prioritize certain applications, whether they be your student management software, your online testing services, whether it be a cloud instance or an on-prem instance. Maybe it's limit certain things, like if you don't want Netflix to be allowed in your school during certain times of the day, don't think about limiting as I'm only going to be able to do one type of limit. You should be able to limit based on time of day. You should be able to limit based on type of device, or even location, or type of user, and then being able to block other things. And so one of the things that our system allows you to do through our management system is we have literally thousands of applications and adding to it every day, so that you can go in and you can pick the applications that are important to your educational environment and prioritize those for students and faculty and staff. You may want to limit certain access to certain things during the day to preserve your educational bandwidth, and then block, of course, at the same time. And you can also block and limit different based on the type of user. So if it's a guest coming into your network, ensuring that they have guest access, but they're not taking away instructional bandwidth time. There is a lot. I would definitely make sure that as you're evaluating Wi-Fi 6 options, there's a lot of gray area. A lot of people say they can do layer 7 filtering and layer 7 access, and in some ways they can, and in some ways the devil's in the details. And when I say some of those things, it may be it's either a block, an allow, or a block, all in or all out, or I have to move someone to a different VLAN in order to block that. And so if I start saying I want 5 or 6 different scenarios, now I have to span VLANs across all of my network to be able to do those things. You really want to make sure as you're looking at application intelligence and really a policy enforcement at the edge, to ensure the ease of deployment and ease of support, because it's not about all the applications that you're wanting to do today. It's about the applications that you're going to need to do over the next 3, 4, 5 years while this wireless is in your network. And so making sure that the management allows you to do that and change and the network adapt to your needs, not having to go back and rebuild and rebuy every time. So when we talk about cloud-based and we talk about efficiency and we talk about ease of use, we really focus on a single console. And I think it's very important, both from from an evaluation standpoint of schools. When we talk about future-proofing your network, a lot of that is also network management. It's how efficient is it to support my wireless users and my wired users, because of course your wireless is all ties back into your wired environment. And so having a cloud-based single console that can do everything and not have to have a tremendous amount of add-on pieces of software to it. We'll talk about that kind of in the funding and design and deployment pieces in a few minutes, but having the ability to bring in multi-tenant control, having zero-touch provisioning to where you can actually configure your wireless network before it ever gets on site. You can have it to where if you have multiple, especially in today's world, if you don't have students coming in right now and you're doing remote learning, it's a great time if you have a need for wireless and need to refresh, to get in there while no students are in there, but you still have social distancing rules and regulations. And so being able to pre-configure and know that when that access point ships, a single person can go into a classroom and plug that access point in, and it's working immediately. I don't have to dispatch large crews. I don't have to have a whole lot of people in my schools, and I can still maintain that social distancing with our zero touch provisioning. So just some thoughts, really wanted to make sure that as we talk about the access and talk about Wi-Fi 6, not just the feeds and speeds, but a lot of this is making sure that you're making all the or considering all the things that you need to in making a decision, not just on a logo or initial buy price point. So one of the things that Cambium's done is we have a piece of software called Ezpass that is part of our cloud-based management software, and it allows you to it's free for education, so there's no cost for to have this, but it allows you to tie into Microsoft Azure or into the G Suite. So if you're a Chromebook, instead of having to see everybody in my DHCP as Chromebook, they can actually authenticate via single sign-on to the G Suite and to the Google admin interface. And so instead of you having to maintain multiple domains or an on-prem and an off-prem, we can tie that directly into there, so single sign-on. Same thing with Microsoft Azure in the cloud. And then even if you want to do self-registration for guests or those type of things, really probably the broadest and widest range of onboarding, and everything is very click-through self. You can build it without having to have professional services, without having to do a tremendous amount of onboarding of new knowledge and those type of things. And so we want to make it sure it's simple yet secure for our schools to be able to deploy. So it's really easy for everybody to talk about, I've got this high density environment. I've got what we know that in schools right now, about 30% of the devices connected in a classroom are non-human centric devices, and that continues to grow. So if I've got 25 students, or maybe it's half of that with with the pandemic, but it's not going to be here forever, hopefully. So when we do get back into a normal classroom environment where there might be 25 to 30 students, you have to add another 30% on top of that for IoT, for printers, for the intelligent classroom, for the projectors and phone systems and security cameras and all those things that connect, because those things are moving, if they're not already there currently, to wireless. And so one of the things that we very much pride ourselves on and is our automated testing facilities. And so as you can see in this picture, we have literally hundreds and hundreds of devices, Chromebooks, laptops, iPads, iPhones, both Apple devices and Windows devices that we go through literally thousands of tests on, making sure that roaming and high speed or transmissions and everything continues to work in real world EDU environments. And so when we start looking at, we even have, another picture here. We even have a classroom setup of nine rooms that emulate a classroom, that have walls in them, that have desks in them, that we can show what the throughput from one classroom through a wall to another office or whatever can show. And so we really take pride in all of the testing that we do. And a lot of times people say, the first thing I hear from a lot of people is, I don't have a single Wi-Fi 6 device on my network. Why would I upgrade to Wi-Fi 6? That's a great question, because you do have to be fiscally responsible as a school district, and especially in today's world where budgets are really coming down. May not be getting as much money from the state or federal government, or even the fact that there's no revenue coming in that from sports or anything potentially that you may have the ability to feed off of during the year in the past. And so why am I upgrading to Wi-Fi 6 when none of my devices support that? So you're making a decision with Wi-Fi 6 in this scenario. The room picture that I showed you just a few minutes ago, we took our Wi-Fi 6 AP and took a Wi-Fi 5 AP, and you can see that we, even by putting the Wi-Fi 6 access point that we just released, I guess a couple months ago, we can improve the efficiency on a Wi-Fi 5 device. And so when in this scenario, and what you're seeing here is, with a Wi-Fi 5 access point, you see your throughput room to room to room. And so of course it's going to go down and degrade in the more walls you go through and those type of things. However, if you put the same device, which is a Wi-Fi 5 client, in a Wi-Fi 6 environment, you can see the elevated throughput. So by upgrading to Wi-Fi 6, you can actually improve your current client's throughput for your environment. And so thinking about what we were showing earlier with the cars and the racing and the race car with the Wi-Fi 6 and the old minivan with 11N, it's somewhat, it's the ability to move your clients to a faster environment without a doubt. One of the other things that it does is we took a Wi-Fi 5 and a Wi-Fi 6 on throughput. So if we take and start measuring throughput for the devices coming in, and so if you think about it, Chromebooks and PCs, I don't think currently that it's been released. I know that Intel and AMD had planned to release early this summer. I think there were some delays in that because of manufacturing problems and COVID and those type of things, some of the things that happen in the world. But definitely the iPhone 11 and the Samsung S10 offer a Wi-Fi 6 card, and that very shortly we'll start to see the devices move to a Wi-Fi 6 client. And when you start looking at your throughput difference between a Wi-Fi 5, and that's what we're showing here on a Google Pixel Wi-Fi 5 device and a Samsung Wi-Fi 6 device, it is so massively different. And so when I start saying, if I'm going to upgrade my wireless, why would I spend today's dollars on yesterday's technology? Well, some people say, well, I don't have the clients for it. You're going to have the clients for it over the course of the next few years, and it's going to continue to grow. But today, without having to pay a premium for that upgrade to Wi-Fi 6, you can improve the efficiency of your Wi-Fi 5 devices. And then as you can see here, as Wi-Fi 6 devices come onto your network, they're going to even take a larger bounce of efficiency. So a lot of times schools, school district CIOs are wearing multiple hats, small tech staff. And when you start talking about spatial streams and 80 gig versus 240 gig, and how do I plan and how do I deploy it? There seems to be a lot of misconceptions. And so one thing that we have and we offer for a free tool, and I would definitely encourage anyone to go to our website and download it, it's called Wi-Fi Designer. And you can log in as a guest, but if you want to create a username and password for free, you can actually export this to PDF and get a bill of materials and those type of things. But don't think of it like as a full-on Ekahau and everything, but I can import my fire escape plans of my schools into this, and I can define the width of a door so it puts it to scale, and I can define the type of, is it a brick building, is it cinder block walls, are they drywall walls, those type of things. And then you can actually place your APs into this and move them around and see what you would want from a general standpoint. And so a lot of schools struggle with, okay, I'm going to go for E-rate, or I'm going to do for a refresh here, but I really don't know what I need, and I'd like to kind of get an idea of what I need. Maybe not 100% exact, but just give me a start. And that's where this free tool allows you to be able to start looking at what Wi-Fi 6 can do in your environment versus a Wi-Fi 5. And we've got our Wi-Fi 5 access points and all of our legacy access points in here, so you can actually take and put and do a side-by-side comparison and what your coverage rate would be, and then also what you're wanting to deliver to your end users. And so when you start talking about that planning, as you saw in this picture, it's a pretty big environment. There's 4 access points, and you go, oh wow, I can do this whole place with 4 access points. The first thing you have to think about is density concerns. And so density concerns become how many devices are going to connect. And so yes, maybe one access point can see multiple classrooms, but that also means that one access point is going to take the burden of, hundreds of devices potentially, not just end users, as we talked about. Now I've got 30% of those end users. If those end users went from 25 to 100, now I've got another 30, so 130 devices potentially connecting to one AP. And so there is definitely density concerns that have to come into your, in your thought process. Location needs, huge difference between mounting an access point, no matter what it is, and at the top of a gym 50 feet up in the air and thinking that you can cover it, the gym with 500 people in there. And so it's understanding the location of where you're going to mount an access point, but also the location of the number of users and what type of service you're going to do. If you said, hey, I'm fine with my gym offering less bandwidth because most people are going to be guests at night, that's fine. But if you still want to have that high speed and high density throughput, you need to plan for multiple devices potentially, even in a place that coverage looks to be okay in a distance coverage, but it's about capacity there too. End user devices. There's still a lot of schools definitely that have BG devices, and you look at that in that 2.4 range, that 2.4 gigahertz range. They're not going to see any efficiency or anything out of a Wi-Fi 6. And so even in a Wi-Fi 6, you're going to still have a 2.4 radio potentially so that you can support those. But the faster that you can get off of that, the better off you're going to be. And so when you start thinking about not just your end user devices, but as you make other decisions in your schools, as you make the decisions to put projectors in the classroom potentially, or refresh a school with new devices, ensuring that you're a part of the planning and as a technology leader to make sure that you have at least AC client cards, because it's a two-way street when it comes to wireless. I can't make the end device go from 2.4 to 5 gigahertz. I can't make it go from 11N to Wi-Fi 6 just because I've got a Wi-Fi 6 access point in the classroom. And so the end user devices change that, change my need and change the ability to deliver higher rate services. And we see a lot of times that schools I know it's the race to the lowest cost from a Chromebook standpoint, race to $100 device and less, and then even to perimeter access and some of the decision making around cameras and those type of things. But the quicker you can get away from those older technologies and moving to a Wi-Fi 5 and Wi-Fi 6 environment, the more ready you're going to be for that future proofing of your network and supporting higher data rates. Adoption of Wi-Fi 6 client devices for one-to-one. I know that there's a tremendous amount of people, especially with, I've seen it on the news every day with COVID going on, that there's got to put a device in every student's hands so that they can take them home. They can have that remote learning environment. I implore you to be willing to pay up for your for the card, the connection, the Wi-Fi, the network card in that device. And there's the devil's in the details on all of those offerings from all the manufacturers when it comes to a Chromebook or a PC or a Surface or whatever type of device it is that you may be purchasing for your students and even your faculty. But the one thing that you would definitely feel from a negative standpoint is to go cheap on that Wi-Fi client. So that's, I can't force that enough and focus on that enough. Another thing is switching and cabling upgrades. When you look at your wireless environment and upgrading it, even as we were talking about, even AC, never, it had the promise of potentially doing more than a gigabit throughput, but it never got to that promise. AC was much better than 11N, but it never got to the promise of that. And so making sure that you have the cabling and then the switching with multi-rate to support your Wi-Fi 6 deployments is very important, very critical as you move forward at that. And then definitely network as a service is a deployment consideration. A lot of schools are having to pull back from their resources and having to reallocate resources. And so there are some great benefits of network as a service when you start looking at just basic. I can have a wireless environment, wired and wireless environment that's managed for me, so I can take my efforts and take my team's efforts and refocus those on the support of remote learning, support of online testing. It's not a matter of thinning down your networking team. It's changing the focus and the day-to-day activities that you may have been focused on in the past, being able to outsource that as network as a service. So some of the funding options that we definitely see, and I don't think there's a whole lot of new things here to talk about, but definitely in the United States, we have a program called the E-rate, which is a federally subsidized program. It's been going on for a little over 20 years now. And this year we just finished out the modernization order, the first one, and then all schools now have a refreshed 5-year budget. And so that is definitely focused on being able to provide high-speed access into the classrooms and into the campus. The proposed eligible service list this year has already been released. And while there was a lot of talk that maybe at-home learning and at-home access and even school bus access and those things being made eligible, those were not part of the proposed services. And so, but definitely outdoor wireless. If you want, wireless in the parking lot, in the facilities, anything that's on campus inside of that build entity would still be eligible. And like we said earlier, there's going to come a time that the students are back in the classrooms and back to the traditional instruction, not the non-traditional instruction. So being able to make sure that that you're ready for that as it comes back is definitely important. And E-rate is a major funding piece for that. We can definitely help with giving some guidelines around that, and definitely you want to start your planning for that early in the season. And it's already the season has already started, and we've already seen some school districts go out to bid on some opportunity. A new one for us in the United States, and I know that definitely some other countries have this too. They call it different things, but the CARES Act, and that is focused on overcoming access because of the COVID-19 and supporting non-traditional instructional environments, whether it be lighting up a park or working with your local town to light up provide internet access to the homes of students, or to on school bus Wi-Fi, taking and extending the classroom or extending the school's network outside of the campus. And it's also allows you to be able to fund things that are not eligible inside of the E-rate program, such as non-instructional facilities, such as like a board office or a bus garage, that you may be able to service and service home access or outdoor access. And so those two, we've seen schools really take advantage of that. Definitely each state is very different in how they're dispersing those CARES Act dollars, but I would definitely encourage everyone to look at that inside the United States and outside of the United States. There's several programs that are similar. I don't know all the names of them, but definitely encourage you to look at those funding resources. Leasing versus NAS, and this is a question I get a lot. You know, payment planning, leasing. A lot of people do a $0 lease or $1 buyout, and what that is pretty much just looking at a traditional way of paying for something over time, like you would a car, versus network as a service is, you know, something as simple as outsourcing day-to-day deployments. We've seen a lot of schools even taking their existing network and not having to buy a new network or upgrading it slowly over time, and having a service provider, a NAS service provider, actually come in and help supporting that. And that takes the economic and also the technology burden off of your shoulders as a school district. And then, you know, when you also thinking about, you know, pricing and planning, what is the real cost of a wireless refresh? There's a lot of different types of Wi-Fi 6 access points, a lot of different type of AC access points. There's wave 1, wave 2, 2x2, 3x3, 4x4. Does it have a sensor and those things? And how many radios does it have? A radio is doing a shared service. Are there software subscriptions and add-ons? Is there an add-on for support, integration? Those are all things that a lot of times it's that race to that cheapest access point, and not taking into consideration the full ROI on what I'm looking at. And so I may have a situation to where I can put I have the ability to put a single radio that covers twice as many people and gives me twice as much support at you know, a third the cost of what it would cost to put 2 radios in from another manufacturer. And so be open, I would say, to the design considerations, but make sure that you're asking the right questions and you're getting all the right information, and not just taking a marketing sheet and saying, okay, I'm gonna be able to support what I need here from this radio versus this radio. Making sure I look at the 5-year total cost of ownership, and that's really where you need to be thinking anyway from a wireless standpoint. There are some people who think wireless is a 3-year, and it definitely can, because you have to kind of follow your the clients, and as the world moves faster and faster to new clients, you'll see you know, having to keep up with that, even to the point of 6E and different things with Wi-Fi 6 as it comes out with Wi-Fi 6E and those type of things. But I feel like, and so does the you know, the FCC and the E-rate program kind of establishes this, of having a plan to be able to refresh your wireless in a 5-year period over time is a good, strong plan. And I think that's really, you know, if you start thinking that you need to hold on to your wireless for 7, 8, 10 years, you're really just not going to be in a successful environment that far out. So a little bit, I know I've got about 10 minutes here, and for those of you who may not be familiar with Cambium Networks, we're actually spun out of Motorola out of 2011. But one of the things that we're definitely known for is we're pioneering point-to-multipoint and point-to-point broadband connection. And when you start thinking about that, we can deliver a wireless fabric from 200 kilometers to 2 meters away. Being able to provide and save school districts money on wireless point-to-point with service level service provider capabilities, where you may have a situation where you only have one option for fiber. We feel that wireless is the new fiber, and being able to provide that at a much lower cost point. Headquartered in the United States, we're outside of Chicago, more than 8 million nodes. A lot of people may not have heard of us because we've really do a tremendous amount of townships and municipalities. But last August, so now a full year, we actually acquired the assets of Xeris, which some people may know, the heritage Xeris technologies and access points, and incorporated them into deliver the full end-to-end 2 meters to 200 kilometers. And so have literally thousands of education customers across the United States and globe, and just a tremendous focus in all. We are a wireless network that focuses purely on wireless. We're not distracted by other aspects. We don't make phones or telepresence or big data centers. We're focused on wireless and really make sure that we're doing that well. It's definitely a full range of lines. We also have, even with our Wi-Fi 6, we have a freemium version of management. So some schools may not need or want at the current time all the advanced features of a like Ezpass and onboarding, and they're not doing anything with Azure or the G Suite, but they want the efficiency and the value of a Wi-Fi 6 deployment, but don't want an annual subscription cost. We have a free version of our management called CM Maestro. And then as you grow into the needs and develop those other needs, being able to transition that to our XMS platform for management, for application visibility and control, those type of things, makes it really nice. So I don't have to go back and rebuy hardware. It works with both platforms. And then a full line of intelligent PoE switches, 24, 48 port, and 12 port, all stack in the cloud, and do virtual stacking, and both PoE, non-PoE, and then also high density. So definitely from today's, and I wanted to add these in here because if anybody wants to download this, or we'll make this presentation available. But we have two forms of a Wi-Fi 6 radio. We have what's called the XV3, which actually has dedicated radios, but then it also has the dedicated radios for BLE and sensor. So being able to say it's a 3 radio access point plus has a dedicated sensor. You're talking about being able to provide a multi-gig, multi-rate. This is what I would say is our flagship wireless access point. And if you compare it to some of the other manufacturers, from a pricing standpoint, you'll see a tremendous cost savings against some of our competition. Then we also have a 2x2 radio that's 11AX, and I would say, this could be for the classroom. It could be for the offices. It's really considered for not high density environments. And so if and you really, as a school district, and I think this is a big part of what we offer, is from a consulting and knowing what we've seen across the globe in education, helping you determine a mixture of these two access points in your networks. And so, but this thing you're talking about a sub $400 list price, and so really I can start looking at making my Wi-Fi 6 decision and still being able to stay very fiscally responsible in both the XV3 and the XV2. So with that, we're coming into kind of top of the hour. We got a few minutes here that we can open up. I apologize for going a little bit long, but if anyone has any questions, be more than happy to answer the questions now. You can use the chat box in the presentation here. All right, we got one question. It is, do you sell direct or do you use resellers, and where would I find a list of people I can purchase from. So we absolutely are a partner-focused company. We don't sell direct as a manufacturer to end users, and we work with partners across the United States, tremendous amount, hundreds of partners across the United States, and being able to deliver and of course the globe too. I apologize. So definitely you can email us or call us, and we can get you connected with the right partner to support your needs in your location. So follow on to that shows where would I get the pricing. So the partners would be able to provide you the educational pricing at the same time. Thank you everyone for your time, and definitely reach out to Cambium, and hopefully this was beneficial and helpful to everyone.